does Apple introducing this product mean that the iMac Pro is dead? And if it is dead, does it really matter? Hi everyone, welcome to my new YouTube channel. Really glad to have you here. I intend this channel to be one in which you can come and really get a good sense of both product marketing, and all things tech related. I really hope that what I can get across to you is how much I love tech, just like I know you probably do, and hopefully we can get to a good sense of how tech in our world really relates to us as individuals, and how those big companies really understand the consumer-centric nature of our buying behavior. We just came through Apple event for March 2022. There were lots of rumors flying around. There will be new iPads, new MacBooks potentially, new Mac Minis, but all in all, when push came to shove, we actually got a lot out of the Apple event. Just to run through it pretty quickly, we got a new iPhone SE, same iPhone 8 back in the day model, just with a new chip, the A15 Bionic. It actually comes now with 5G, and it's still the same great design as was back in the iPhone 8 days. We got new iPad Airs, and with them came the introduction of the M1 silicon into the new iPad Airs. We got some flashy new colors, 5G, and potentially the thing which iPad users will appreciate the most is that new cinematic camera, also known as center stage. Same sleek design, nice squared off shape that we all know and love. We'll get to the iPad Pros and its relevance to the iPad Airs a little bit later. We also got some new iPhone models, just a reshuffle of what we saw earlier on last year in the Apple cycle. It's a brand new color, same design, same internals, just a great new green color. Green being my personal favorite color. And last but not least, we got the introduction of what I think a lot of us techies were waiting for, a brand new Mac, really, what Apple have dubbed a Mac Studio, along with a studio display. But more on that a little bit later. So let's break it down. What did we learn at this new Apple event in March 2022? The first thing that came to mind is, what exactly is Apple trying to achieve with this new product strategy? If you think about it, since good old Tim Apple has been at the helm, there's been a clear shift away from Apple being this absolute utopic area where all technology enthusiasts will go to purchase their products. In fact, as he's gone along in his tenure, he's introduced a lot more budget models, and not just budget, but really try to get all the way from the budget to the mid-tier, all the way to the top. And it's a real clear shift, because back in the day, Apple was really known as a company where you would strive to aspire to own a Mac. You know, their marketing centered all around word of mouth, centered around going above and beyond. And in today's day and age, especially considering the way in which this new event was structured, we started with an iPhone SE/an iPhone 13 introduction, and we really ended off on the highest end, which with that Mac Studio. And so essentially what Apple are trying to do is to cover the entire market segment to ensure that there is a product that suits each individual market at every end point. There's one more thing that's really interesting. Apple had, with the introduction of the new silicon chips in all of their hardware, they've really tried to not only take advantage of having a product that is really down to the minute detail, exactly specific to what they wanted, but it's also coupled with the iOS environment. We've got this symmetry between hardware and software that only Apple controls to ensure that that user experience is seamless and, of course, controlled by Apple. And last but not least, the entire integration of that ecosystem from the customer's lens, being from when they pick up their phone to when they put their phone down, log onto their computers, to when they go into the couch at night and pick up their iPad, it's all centered around Apple. And as we know, once you're in, you're pretty much in. So it's not just to grab their attention from the budget to the mid-tier to the high-end scale, but it's everything in between. How does Apple ensure that they keep the customer happy? The second thing I think we can learn from this event is we've seen historically and periodically through all these events, specifically those mid-cycle events like we had yesterday, that there are small iterations occurring in all of the different Apple products. So on face value, when you jump from an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 13, yes, there are lovely bells and whistles like a cinematic mode and things like transparency and RAW files and things like that. But it's really small iterations. So when you jump from the 12 to the 13, you don't see much. But if you go back 3 or 4 years, you go from the iPhone 10 or 10s all the way to the 13, massive jumps in both the cinematography elements, in the computational photography, in the hardware, the power, the battery, all of that put together. They've done a really good job of introducing minute details or minute iterations every year, whereas you go back and have a look, you can really see the advancement in technology. That's one. But we do have to ask the question, why even introduce a green iPhone 13? What did it have to do with anything? I mean, there's some beautiful colors before. They didn't change anything really. They've just introduced a new color. And really, when we look at this, it's all about Apple maintaining their relevance in the purchasing behavior of that customer. In other words, when a customer chooses to go down the path, or when they need to go down the path of purchasing a new mobile, Apple has to be front of mind. And so potentially it's not just good enough to have those iPhone models there, that you have a blue one and a black one and a white one, or whatever cool fancy words Apple coins their colors these days. But now we've got a shiny new green one. And that will be on top of mind of all, not only Apple enthusiasts, but those people in the purchasing cycle as well. Similarly, competition is always ongoing. Samsung, in a unique fashion, I suppose you have Oppo and a few others at the same time, but Samsung always introduces a mid-cycle phone around December/January. We've just seen Samsung introduce the S22 range, but we've also seen them introduce an S21 FE. So yes, it's old years stock, but at the end of the day, it's something which is on top of mind for their customers. And similarly, Apple has to join in that same circle. So that's the iPhone. But what about the iPad? And I think if you look at the iPad, that's when you get something which is interesting. Because the iPad introducing the new M1 silicon into their product suite, there are two elements. One is now the iPad Air is the top echelon of both hardware and software, similar to where the M1 Pros are, But they've also introduced a 5G and a greater range of power that utilizes the best of Apple silicon. So the two elements are, one, what does it mean for the iPad Pro? And I think we can all garner out that there will be an introduction of a new silicon into a new iPad Pro throughout this year. But it also means that those users who love the iPad Air, for not only potentially the cost, but also the cost to benefit ratio to them, now have the best of the best. So it's ensuring Apple with these small iterations continues to keep those segments engaged and making sure that they have the best of the best in each of those segments of their customer target audience. So that's two. A third point for today is, why did Apple focus so much on their Pro lineup of products in this event? If you think about it, Apple has integrated their entire suite to date. They've done all their laptops, and they've even done some iPads, introducing the iPad Air in this event. And it's now time to look at desktops. And so they've introduced the M1 silicon into an iMac. But the iMac, even according to their own marketing, is really for a family or to be that computer in your home where it's a go-to and it will just always work. Not necessarily the pro levels. And so Apple's focus was, now we've done all our laptops and it's now time, and our iMacs, and it's now time to get in to that great pro end scale. And so they could have simply taken an iMac Pro and switched it up. They could have even introduced potentially a new Mac Pro. And yet they've done something really in between. And there was a great analysis done by MKBHD, and I'll link that in the notes below. But what we learned from this is Apple wanted to not only introduce something pro level, but they also wanted to do it in truly Apple fashion. And as MKBHD put it, they introduced a Mac Pro Mini, or was it a Mac Mini Pro? Go watch this video to find out. What you get out of this whole thing is that Apple are really focusing back on their pros. They're focusing on providing them with great processing power, great graphics power, making sure that they've got enough I/O to suit their needs. But they're also focusing on that level where, how do I ensure that what my pro end users do in their workspace, in their studio, is actually fit for purpose? And so they're not only introduced a Mac Pro, or a version of a Mac Pro, but they've also introduced a really, really great high-end screen or display. Now, personally speaking, I don't know how you would justify having that $1,700 US / $2,500 Australian dollar price point for a display, but then again, I don't believe that's for me just yet. And so if you are this power user, put those two things together, you've got about at the entry level stage, a $3,000 Mac Studio plus a $2,500 display, you're looking at that $5.5 grand. So if you ask a pro user, potentially that's right in the ballpark of what they'd afford, given the power and the different elements that come with owning such a powerful device. But I don't think it's for everyone. And to end off on our Mac Studio conversation, I think there are two main questions. One is, what is Apple really trying to achieve with that kind of a product? I mean, if you think about it, does Apple introducing this product mean that the iMac Pro is dead? And if it is dead, does it really matter? But I think the bigger question here is, what exactly is Apple's long-term strategy? Because if you think about it, they've introduced all the new silicon into their laptops. They've now introduced a Mac Studio with their high-end M1 Ultra, and I was coining it from marketing strategy, super cool duper max to the nth degree M1 chip. Clearly, I'm not in their marketing department. They've introduced that, and now they've got, as they've said it in their own keynote, one product left, that being the Mac Pro. And what's going to come from the Mac Pro? Personally speaking, I think it'll be the introduction of a new chip again, whether that's an M1 version or potentially an M2 Plus or M2 Max. But there is something that's coming, and it will be bigger, and it will be aimed at the pros, and it will be extremely high end. And the second question we can kind of garner from looking at their pro level products is, Apple's strategy has always been to ensure that their pro consumers are well looked after. We've just seen the introduction of the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, and now we've finally seen the introduction of a pro level silicon chip into a pro level product. And so if you think about it, they've reintroduced all the correct I/O, they've introduced all the right ports, they've even said the buzzwords like customizable and modular and suiting your needs. And really it's the focus on the pros that has bore the best fruit for Apple in general. So now it's time to understand, what's all the fuss? Great question. Let's turn to the thing which makes companies who they are. Companies always have to have favorable, unique, and strong associations with both their products, their brands, and everything in between. So let's talk about Apple. Favorable. I think it's safe to say that Apple continued to iterate on their product suite for 2022. They've introduced a relatively nice new coat of paint on their iPhones. They've introduced a nice new coat of paint on their iPad Airs, including new internals, somewhat. They've introduced a brand spanking new Mac Studio with the introduction of a great new display. And so if you think about it, Apple have continued to act at that favorable brand, always iterating, always ensuring that they're front of mind for all their customers. So how have Apple been unique? Apple is known for many things. One of them has always been to ensure that its offerings remain unique in all elements. Whether you love them or hate them, Apple is certainly a unique brand. From their product suite to their ecosystem to their iOS, whether you look at it as this walled garden which you can never get out or never get in potentially, but they've always been unique. And if we believe the hype out of today's sessions, no other computing company is on par with their silicon to date. they've got the competitive advantage, and they know that they're ahead. And if you talk about the uniqueness, you've got to think to yourself, what other company in the world besides Apple, or maybe Samsung, but what other company besides really Apple can get away with displaying on show a $15 or $17 or $2,000 display? Yes, it's aimed at pros, but get away with it. And everyone jumps up and down and raves about it. I mean, it is a great display, and I mean, it does boast what potentially could be fantastic speakers, a great camera system. It even has an E13 Bionic chip inside there. I mean, that's better than some competitive Android phones out there. Yes, that's true, but is the $2,000 price tag even coming into a consumer's mind, or are they so engrossed with the uniqueness that is Apple that completely flies away from them? So, Apple remains favorable and unique. Number 3, what strong associations can be garnered towards Apple as a brand? So Apple, they always come out swinging. I mean, there's Apple fanboys and fangirls, but equally, there's some haters on the other end. And those haters have some rationale to them. You can't customize everything very easily in Apple. iOS is quite rigid in terms of how it competes with Android. So there are things which Apple really do fit really tightly together and ensure that their customers are looked after the way that they believe they need to be looked after. But there's one thing that still remains true. Whether you love them or hate them, you're always talking about them. And it's that really strong brand equity that Apple remains at the forefront of everyone's discussion and everyone's topics in relation to tech, mobiles, computing, tablets, you name it, Apple's on your mind. And that, my friends, that's what makes Apple so special. So friends, what have you learned today? Well, we've learned that I like to get up at 5 in the morning to watch an Apple event. But we've also learned that Apple brings out these products to aspire and to invest their not only money and time in their consumers, but to really ensure that they are front of mind in every single technology purchasing buying decision that we make. We've also learned that they have a real competitive advantage in not only silicon manufacturing, but also in the way that they've designed their products to ensure that they are the best of the best in each of their categories. There's no getting away from Apple being a really, really hot topic, whether you love them or hate them. But either way, we've got really strong associations with them, and that is what ensures that Apple remains top of mind in all of our purchasing decisions. If you've liked the content today, be the really good person to hit that subscribe button, like and share this content, and I really do hope to see you next time. But for now, ensure you do that extra good deed to spread a little bit more light into the world.